Hello guys, and welcome back to Joe's Ventures, and today we're going to be doing part 65 of our Planet Zoo mod spotlights, where we take a look at some of the wonderful mods people have been making, and talk about some of the wonderful animals we share our world with. So, yeah. Today we've got a lot of fish. Most of them are pretty much all done by Leaf and Buffsoo, but we've got extra little one at the end that we'll talk to. So pretty much everything except our last animal at the back here was done by Leaf and Buffsoo. I just wanted to get that out of the way so I don't have to say Leaf and Buffsoo did this mod like 8 times. But we're going to be starting off today with the Asian Arowana, or the red-tailed golden Arowana. So these guys are a phenotype. Their taxonomy is actually very, very interesting. So there's a bunch of different halotypes, or kind of like different versions or different morphologies found in different regions. And these guys are found only in northern Sumatra in Indonesia. So these guys are the red-tailed golden Arowana, because you can see here they're quite golden, but you can see their tail fins and stuff, and their fins are quite reddish. So that's where they get the name red-tailed golden. They were actually also described as their own species a while ago by Scleropagus anuris, but that's not very commonly accepted by most taxonomists. And generally they're just considered like a halotype or a kind of population of unique looking Asian Arowana. So like other Arowana, they get about 80 to 90 centimeters in length, or about 35 inches, and have these long bodies with these large pectoral fins, and also these really interesting scales that they have here, which kind of give them the look of a dragon scales, which is really, really awesome. And in terms of biology, they tend to reach sexual maturity pretty late for most fish, about 3 to 4 years old, and they produce 30 to 100 eggs, which are quite large. And after the eggs are fertilized, the Asian Arowana has great parental care, and they have mouth brooding, so they'll have the father was paternal, so the father will have them in his mouth and take care of them. So both the fertilized eggs and larvae are brooded within the mouth of the male. In terms of their diet, they're similar to other species of arowana that we've covered, like the black arowana and the silver arowana. These guys are also called like monkeyfish or dragonfish, or Asian bony tongue dragonfish, for example, and they pretty much eat whatever they can. In terms of their conservation, they're kind of seen as they're a very common fish, like very expensive to sell in the pet trade, because they're kind of like a good luck charm. They symbol prosperity and good luck, especially in Asian cultures, because they have a resemblance to like the Chinese dragon with these large scales and such. And in terms of conservation, they are considered endangered because of people taking them out of the wild, but also their habitat declining. Things like that has been really bad issue for these guys. But luckily, in terms of their captivity, because they're so common in captivity, the captive populations are safe, and all these random morphs are kept as well. And actually, they kind of microchip them, because you can sell them. They can go up for like $5,000, so quite expensive for a fish. So you kind of have them microchipped, and they DNA them, so there's a lot that goes into producing arowana in captivity. And in terms of their diet, they're carnivorous, so they should be fed things like shrimps and crickets in captivity. In the wild, they'll eat like scorpions, centipedes, basically anything that falls, any invertebrates or anything that can really fall into their habitat. That's where they get the name monkeyfish as well. And that's what they kind of eat in captivity. And some captive ones will actually be fed koi fry, because that helps with their coloration, or believed to at least. So, yeah, really, really awesome to see these golden arowanas, done by Leaf and Buffsoo, of course. Now we're going to move on to another one. We have got the Amazonian Apapa, or just called the Apapa. So it's a really cool little fish we got going on here. Let's see if we can find it. Yeah, there we are. So this is the Apapa. So these guys are, their scientific name is Panella castellanana, I believe you pronounced that. They're a South American species of predatory fish that are found mainly in the Amazon and Orinoco basins. They're actually quite highly aggressive and are found in large schools. They hunt their prey closer to the surface or in shallow areas of water. And they kind of look like huge sardines. And you can see they're laterally compressed, that means they're quite tall, with vivid golden patterning, as you can see here. And they have these dark bands and also these upturned mounts that helps them attack things that are on top of them. So That really helps. And they can get quite large. They can reach lengths of about 80 centimeters, or about 2 feet and 6 inches. And they can weigh a maximum of 5 kilograms, or 11 pounds. And they tend to hunt mainly at night, more active at night than during the day, and they feed mainly on insects and other fish that are found close to the surface. As you can see, their upturned mouth has evolved to help them do. So very, very cool fish. I'm a big fan of these Pallinura apapas, so very, very cool. Let's see, let me check if that's the right species name. Yeah, Castorella, yeah, that's the right one. Very, very cool fish. Next we're going to be moving on to another one by Leaf and Buff. So we've got another fish. So we've got lots of fish today, so we're not going to be going too in depth, so it's going to be a quicker episode, which is probably pretty good, since I've got like 7 of these to make before the update. Next we've got here the Tiger River Stingray, done by Leaf and Buff as well. So the scientific name is Protomotrigon tigara, or tigarina, or something like that, also known as the Tiger River Stingray. So these are an endangered species that are endemic to the black and whitewater rivers of the upper Amazon basin, so around northeastern Peru, and are sometimes kept and bred in captivity or in aquariums, but they're generally a sensitive species to keep. So these guys are closely related to the Cynochlorus, so another species of stingray, and prior to its discovery, some used the name P. mercachani, which is actually a synonym or kind of the same thing as the large spot river stingray. So it's a bit of taxonomy there. They're not too different from other stingrays in terms of their ecology. You can see here they're quite flat and they have these wide discs that they use to flap around, and they kind of move around and filter through the soil to find crayfish and things to eat, and they breed quite similar to them. And these guys, we don't know their maximum size. It's just, again, they're an endangered species, and the Amazon is quite hard to explore. The maximum size of these guys is not known, but they reach a disc width of at least 70 centimeters, or 28 inches at captivity, and they can, and in captivity, the maturity is reached when a disc width is about 48 centimeters, or 19 inches. So that's about when they reach sexual maturity. They're a really, really cool fish. It's kind of sucks that they're endangered, because obviously we don't know too much about them, and they're probably quite similar to other stingrays as well. Really, really awesome fish here. Also done by Leaf and Buff. But now we're going to move on to something a little bit more famous, you could say. We've got the green Moray eel. Look at these wonderful guys. I think they came out rather well. So these guys are not too different from other types of Moray. They're mainly found around the tropical Atlantic. So from the west, they range from Florida into the Bahamas to like southern Brazil to the east, and can be found on islands such as Cape Verde along the coast of Senegal as well. And they've actually been spotted in California. So they get quite big as well. They get about 1 meter 50 centimeters, so almost about 2 meters long is probably the largest. And in terms of their biology, they tend to live in rocky areas and coral reefs between 2 and 40 meters deep. And they can also be found in seagrass and mangroves, and are nocturnal. So during the day they tend to hide in these shelters, and then they come out at dusk to find crayfish and cuttlefish to eat. And they can detect them because they have a very, very highly developed sense of smell, which is pretty cool. And there's actually little known about how they breed, especially with other moray eels. They are egg layers, but they seem to have spawning grounds that are extremely deep, or about 400 meters or so. And at birth, the moray eel will go through like a larval stage, like European eels that look like a willow leaf, and they measure about 5 to 10 centimeters long. And the larvae are transparent, and they typically filter feeders, so they feed on plankton. And they actually start out as hermaphrodites, so they're both male and female, but they acquire one of these sexes predominantly due to environmental factors. So that's pretty cool. And so the defense system, because when they bite someone and often their wounds get infected, they were thought to be venomous, but this is not the case. It's actually because their teeth has often got a lot of rotting fish meat in it as well. And they also, green moray, actually have a toxin that can cause food poisoning called Signatera, I believe. So this is kind of that poisoning as well that happens when a bite gets infected. And they're also covered with a mucus like other eels that help protect them from other predators, so it can help them, and also from bacteria as well and parasites. So yeah, really, really cool fish. I'm a big fan of how this guy came out. Another one done by Leaf and Buffsu. Cool to see a nice green Moray. Next we've got the nurse shark. So this is quite a cool shark that we get to talk about. So let's see if we can find one. Where's it? Oh, there they are. Look at one little nurse shark over here. So these guys are a type of fish. These guys are considered vulnerable by the IUCN, and they are considered to be least concerned in the United States and the Bahamas, but are near threatened in the Western Atlantic Ocean because of their vulnerable status in South America and reported threats throughout many of Central America and the Caribbean. So these guys are kind of a bottom-feeding shark, as you can see like this. They tend to come around the bottom. Maximum length for these guys is about 3 meters or 10 feet or so, with past reports getting up to 4.5 meters or 15 feet, and corresponding weights of about 330 grams. Though these larger estimates are probably overestimated, that they would potentially get about like 2 or 3 meters, so that's probably as large as they would get. And you can see these older nurse sharks are kind of brownish in color, with the newly born ones having a spotted coloration that kind of fades. And in terms of their habitat, as I mentioned, they are widespread, but they have a patchy geographical distribution. So they can be found in the East Atlantic. They range from Cape Verde to Gabon. In the West Atlantic, they can be found from Rhode Island to southern Brazil. And the East Pacific, the Baja California to Peru. And these guys, as you can see, are typically bottom-dwelling species, with juveniles being mostly found in the bottoms of soft coral reefs or shallow coral reefs and mangrove islands and things like that, with older individuals tending to live around deeper reefs and rocky areas where they look for crevasses and ledges to try and hide and then seek shelter, and then they come out at night to feed. So in terms of their ecology, they're quite different from your typical like great white shark. These guys are opportunistic and they feed on small things such as stingrays, also some smaller vertebrates such as crustaceans and mollusks. And they're actually typically solitary and nocturnal, so they typically look through the sediments at night and are often gregarious during the day, with forming large groups that sleep together. And these guys are also suction feeders, so they're capable of creating a suction force that allows food to get sucked into their mouths. And although they have a small mouth, they can really limit the size of their prey. They can suck and spit to try and reduce the size of food items. And they also have very, very specialized teeth that helps them to eat like these kind of prey, like stuff that's hard, which is pretty cool. And they're actually extremely sedentary, like unlike a lot of shark species, because they are spend a lot of time on the bottom of the water, and they're actually able to pump water through their gills, unlike a lot of sharks like great whites, and so they can sit on the bottom of the water and breathe still. And American alligators and American crocodiles have been known to prey on nurse sharks, but this seems to be not very common. In terms of reproduction, they are ovoviviparous, which means the fertilized eggs hatch inside the female before they're born. And the mating cycle for these nurse sharks is biannual. So this means a female can take up to 18 months or so to produce a new batch of eggs. And the mating season runs from late June to early July, with a gestation period of about 6 months, and a litter can be up to 21 or 29 pups. And these young sharks are born fully developed at about 30 centimeters long. And as I mentioned, these guys are considered vulnerable because they get often caught as bycatch and even directly targeted by some fisheries. So it's very important that you kind of protect them, because obviously they're an important shark, especially in terms of shark research, because they're easy to handle. They can be tagged and they can be captured quite easily. And they're actually ranked 4th in documented shark bites to humans, just because they're so common. But it's often due to human behaviors like divers kind of pestering the shark, and the sharks try to like just defend themselves, things like that. But yeah, really, really cool little shark. How can you not love these guys? Nurse sharks are quite common in aquariums as well because of their nature, and I think they're rather, rather cool. So yeah, that was done by Leaf and Buffsu, of course. Now we're going to be moving on to our next animal. We've got the white-spotted bamboo shark. So, really cute little guy over here. Let's see if we can find him. Oh, there he is. Oh, wait, there he is. Look at these cute little guys. So this is the white-spotted bamboo shark. These guys are a carpet shark with an adult size that gets about a meter in length. They're quite small and actually harmless to people as well, and they mostly come out at night. And they're actually occasionally kept as pets and larger house aquaria, and they can grow up to 93 centimeters long, or about 37 inches. And you can see they've got these, they're similar to the nurse shark, they're like bottom feeders, or hang out at the bottom of water. They have these really interesting patterns on them that kind of give them the look of bamboo, and they get the name the white-spotted bamboo shark because they have all these white spots along their body. And the teeth of bamboo sharks are not strongly differentiated from each other, and they're kind of similar to things like nurse sharks. They have that similar ecology. Bamboo sharks actually commonly rest on the bottom with their head and trunk popped up, resting on a bench or depressed dorsal fins. And they have a very distinct dorsal fin, which can be alter or affect where they choose to live, as well as their things like mobility, which is pretty cool. Let's see if we can find the other one here. Must be another one in here. No, I don't want them coming out on land. Let's see if we can find it. Remember, I must have put 3 in here. I must be eating up here. That's okay, we'll just talk about these guys while they're up here. But these guys are quite commonly found in coral reefs in the Pacific Ocean. They can be found in the coastal areas of like Indonesia and the surrounding waters. And their range extends up to Japan and India. And they're also being used for human consumption in Madagascar and Taiwan. So they're quite found on Madagascar as well. So around that areas of the Indian Ocean. And these guys, like the nurse sharks, they feed primarily at night. And they prey on small invertebrates and fish. And they have these small teeth that are used to grasp and cut prey. And so they grasp with the teeth, and then the teeth will sink into the flesh, and then they'll pivot backwards to rip away the hard prey. And it protects the tooth tip from having a flattened surface, and the teeth form a continuous plate to crush crabs. So that's how they are adapted to eat. Oh, what's it doing under the water? I'll have a look at you while we're talking about that. So that's how they kind of manage to eat both soft and hard prey. And juvenile sharks need a higher caloric intake than adult sharks, especially during the wet seasons. And they have an advantage of finding carbon sources because they're benthic predators as opposed to pelagic sharks. So like the spade nose shark, for example. And like most sharks, they have electroreceptors, which align on their snout to help them locate prey that is buried in the sand and mud, which is pretty cool. So these guys are oviparous, which means they are egg-laying sharks. Their eggs are approximately 5 inches long, and they hatch after 4 to 15 weeks. And the young hatch at approximately about 6 inches in length. And apparently in the Bellet Isles Aquarium in Detroit, in 2002 there was a clutch of eggs from a female white-spotted bamboo shark that had no fertilization. So this is a first reported example of parthenogenesis, or giving birth or cloning yourself without a fertilization in the species, which is pretty cool. And yeah, really cool little shark here, also done by Leaf and Puffsu. Really cool to see some more cool little fishies. Really awesome. So now we're going to be moving on to some bigger fish. We've got some bigger fish to fry at the moment, so we're going to have a look. Also done by Leaf and Puffsu, we have got the black marlin. So really cool fish we got going on here. So the black marlin is a species of marlin that's typically found around tropical and subtropical waters in the Indian and Pacific Ocean. And while their maximum published length is about 4.65 meters, or about 15 feet or so, and about 750 kilograms, they are one of the largest species of marlin, and also one of the largest species of fish, or at least bony fish. And they're also among the fastest, and even though their speeds have kind of been greatly exaggerated in media, such as reports of them getting like 132 kilometers an hour or 82 miles per hour. Recent research suggests they have burst speeds of about 36 kilometers per hour or 22 miles as a maximum rate. And they're actually primarily fished commercially and also a highly prized game fish. So can be an issue as well. In terms of their description, compared to white marlins or blue marlins or sailfish or even striped marlins, they have a much more solid pattern than their counterparts. You can see they have a shorter bill as well. They also have this quite solid band on the top of them. And they actually may be distinguished from other marlin species by their rigid pectoral fins. especially from the weight of about 168 kilograms or 180 pounds, and are able to press them flat against their sides and can be tilted further backwards to reduce drag. So the main way you can tell them from other marlins is kind of their pectoral fin, the shorter bill, and also this darker line that they've got going on here. And as I mentioned, they're kind of found in tropical to subtropical waters in the Indo-Pacific and are uncommonly found in temperate waters, and rare reports of them from the Atlantic, could be just straggling individuals. And similar to other species of marlin, their diet mostly consists of various fish and cephalopods. So things they'll mainly eat are things like tuna, mackerel, shark mackerel, flying fish, octopus, squid, things like that. So they're pretty generalist predators, which is pretty cool and quite fast, so that gives them a competitive advantage. So a really nice animal they've got there. So next we have got the Sixgill Sawshark, which is a really cool little shark. Let's see if we can get them going on here. Look at these wonderful little guys. So the Sixgill Sawshark is obviously got the name because it's got 6 gills and it has a saw on its face, so that's where it gets the name Sawshark. So these guys are typically found in temperate to subtropical waters in the Western Indian Ocean, between depths of 37 and 500 meters, and they particularly like to live in the benthic or benthopelagic zones on the continental shelf. And adults are partly segregated from juveniles, and they naturally tend to aggregate as lower depths. And in terms of their size, they're the only species in the group with more than 5 gill slits. And in terms of their size, maximum size of females can reach over 136 centimeters long, so a little under a meter and a half, and males get a little over a meter at about 112 centimeters long. In terms of their behavior, they have these barbules and that's electric sense, like a lot of other sharks do. They can find their prey and incapacitate them with their rostrum. As you can see, they've got this saw, and they can go like shoo, so if the fish tries to get away, it kind of stabs them. And their diet is known to include things like small fish, crustaceans, and squids. And their only known predator is the tiger shark, though there are likely other sharks that will eat these small sharks. And like other saw sharks, they are ovoviviparous, which means they lay their eggs and the eggs hatch inside their body. And though they breed annually, giving birth to about 5 to 7 pups in a litter, it is possible that they also come inshore. There's inshore pupping grounds to give birth. And the pups are about 35 centimeters long at birth, and they later mature at about 83 centimeters. And if they're male, if they are male, and 110 centimeters if they are females. So females get a little bit larger before they mature. Where am I? So these guys are typically found around like the southern coast of South Africa as well. And the other species are kind of found between Madagascar and the Mauritius and those kind of islands, also up into the eastern coast of Africa. But these guys are typically found around southern Africa, like around the Cape, places like that. And they are considered least concern by the IUCN. So they're not sought after. They are frequently caught as bycatch and disposed. And because of their deep habitat, they're likely not in direct threat of people, but obviously things like climate change and habitat degradation could definitely affect them. But yeah, really, really cool fish. And also done by Leaf and Buffsu, so everything past this point was done by Leaf and Buffsu. But now we've got another cool little, well not little of course, but we've got a cool animal here. We have got the Dinosuchus, done by Leaf and Megarex Gaming. So these guys are an extinct genus of alligatoroid crocodile. Let's see if we can find one swimming. There we are. So these guys lived during the late Cretaceous, so about 82 to 73 million years ago. And their name translates to terrible crocodile, and are derived from the Greek words, obviously, terrible and crocodile. So the first remains of these guys were found around North Carolina, or the US, and they're named and described in 1909, with additional remains being found in the 1940s and from that since. So these guys are far larger than most living, any living modern crocodile or alligator. They can get to, the largest adults have been estimated to about 10 meters long, or about 35 feet. And its overall appearance is actually still quite similar to their relatives, since they are related to alligators. They have these large teeth that are built for crushing things. And they also have these large osteoderms on the back here that shows them off. And one study also indicated that these guys may potentially live up to 50 years or so, since they grow to a rate that's quite similar to modern crocodiles. but they just grow over a much longer time to make them larger. So in terms of the species that we have, I believe there's like 4 species. This one is Rioganensis, which was described in 1954. And in terms of where they've been found, they live across most of the US, around the east coast of the US, like Texas, Montana, and many along the east coast. And they lived on both sides of the Western Interior Seaway. And these guys are believed to be opportunistic predators that lived in these coastal areas as well. And they reached their largest size in the western habitats, and over time they probably divided into separate species, and these guys were probably capable of eating large animals such as dinosaurs, and may have fed on the sea turtles, fish, and other aquatic prey, potentially like small mosasaurs, things like that. Pretty much anything they could get their mouths around, they would eat, just like the modern crocodilians. And they have a really huge bite force. The estimated bite force of Dinosuchus is about 18,000 newtons, or like nearly 2 tons of bite force, just pressing down on you with those big jaws, which is so interesting. And there's a particularly large fragment from this species, Dinosuchus riograndis, which is estimated to come from an individual with a skull length of about 147 centimeters. And that's where they get kind of that estimate of about 10.6 meters. So there's lots of large crocodiles in prehistory, like Sarcosuchus, Brutosaurus, and animals like that, but Dinosuchus is kind of the more famous one. As I mentioned, they kind of lived around the Western Interior Seaway, so they would have lived in probably the coastal areas along with like marshlands and things like that. So they probably enjoyed that more marine deposits where they're typically found, but they could be found in potentially rivers and things like that. And we have estimated that we think it eats lots of dinosaurs and ornithopods and stuff, and would have used like death rolls, very similar to like how Nile crocodiles would eat wildebeest. They'd just grab them and rip them, and the myth thinks that Dinosuchus probably used a similar way to eat some large dinosaurs or even large turtles, things like that. So it's a really, really interesting animal. And yeah, I think this is probably a great place to end the video, and really nice to see Mega Rex Gaming and doing a really good job in making some extinct animals. It's cool to see some more extinct animals, and this Dinosuchus came out really well. Shout out to Leaf and Mega Gaming Rex. I know I've covered Dinosuchus a couple times in other mod spotlights, but it's cool to see one for Planet Zoo. I know this was a shorter one, but that's okay. I've got 7 more of these to do, so it's cool to have like a short one occasionally. So I think this would be a great place to end the video. So yeah, I really, really, really hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys like and subscribe. Always remember to get the little bell icon to get notified of learning thing. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys like and subscribe, and bye-bye.